This is breaking news.
His show, which is as related to myself. So on Wednesday morning, the day before the first day of school, FBI agents came to my home very early in the morning, and they wanted my personal cell as well as my DOE phone, both of which I gave to them. And really from there, there's not a whole lot more that I can share. Nobody, right? What do we? I'm not saying it again. Are they all right? Because I don't want to move in case you guys have what you need. This is the new system that we got in here. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, again, I will reiterate again. Wednesday morning, the day before the school year began, early in the morning, I had a number of FBI agents who came to my home and wanted my personal cell phone as well as my work phone, my DOE phone. Outside of that, I don't know a lot. They were not at my house for very long. I would not describe what happened there as a raid. So, mentioned, I think from beginning until the end, they were at my house for maybe, I don't know, half an hour or so. They basically wanted the phones, and that was it. Outside of that, I have also, anytime anything like that happens, you have to retain a lawyer. I have retained a lawyer. His name is Xavier Donaldson, and he has been told in his communications that I am absolutely not a target in whatever this investigation is about. And so with that, there's not a whole lot more to share. You're certainly advised not to talk much about it. If the feds showed up at your home, I'm sure you wouldn't be talking about it a lot either, right? And so as it relates to myself, I have always lived my life with integrity every day of my life. And anybody who knows me knows that. My staff knows it. The folks who I've worked with for many, many years know that as well. So we'll all wait and see where these investigations go. And other than that, I am very, very focused on my work, being the Chancellor of New York City Public Schools, the largest school system in time in a position like this. There's work beckons every day, and I'm thrilled to do it together with the amazing folks that you see here who are part of our team. We're starting, I think, our third year now, our third full school year together. And they're not a better group of people that I would want to do this work with. We've got an amazing team, and to the degree that you've got questions around any of the work, we got off, I think, the following day, on Thursday, we got off to one of the best starts that New York City schools have ever had. Wasn't widely reported. It'll be reported if, you've got a crying child who wasn't picked up on the bus and the mother who's upset. Bless you. But what we had was, it was almost a flawless start to the school year. And I salute our operations team and our principals across the city. Emma Vadera, who leads so much of the operations for us, spends morning, noon, and night focused on these things. And they don't become newsworthy when you have a smooth opening. But Emma, I want to say to where is she? She's somewhere in here. Emma, I really want to thank you and your whole team and the work that you did. And it's not just Emma, it's everybody up here plays a major role in helping to make sure that we get off to a great start to the school year. And I'm really, really just thrilled by the start that we have, in fact, gotten off to. But it is not without incident. So yesterday, we had an incident at the Brandeis High School campus on the Upper West Side, and our Chief of Safety and Partnership Preventions, Mark Rampersant. Mark, let's give folks an opportunity to learn more about what actually happened yesterday. But before you do, I want to emphasize what I have shared with you with respect to the investigation is all that I can share with you. That's why I went on Brian Lira's show. When I'm finished here, I'm going to go to do Marsha Kramer's show. But my statement is essentially what it is. I put out an official statement that I was cooperating with a federal inquiry. And I'm sure you all know and can appreciate and respect the fact that when you are engaged in any aspect of a federal inquiry, everybody advises you not to say much. So I certainly hope you're not waiting to now ask me 10 more questions about that. I want to be very focused on the work that we are doing. That's where I spend my time. I'm not distracted in the least bit. And so the work is why I'm here, and that's what we're focused on. We had an unfortunate incident on the Upper West Side yesterday. And Mark, would you just share a little bit about what we know and where we are?
Absolutely, thank you. And good morning to all the members of the press. And thank you for giving us an opportunity to share with you this morning. So yesterday morning around 9:30-ish, the school received a phone call from a young person who appeared to be crying. And this young person made statements as to having a firearm and being in the bathroom. And the principal received this message from the school secretary who related to the principal, and the principal took the appropriate action by putting the school on a lockdown, immediately notifying our partners in the NYPD and the school safety division, who responded quickly, and out of an abundance of caution, they decided to conduct a search of the building while the building was in lockdown. While we are not happy about the missteps in terms of communication, we are very happy that the principal made the appropriate call, and immediately all of the adults took the appropriate action. We are currently investigating the missteps, and we'll be able to talk to you more about where the communication gap fell. But we are very proud of the principals who took the appropriate steps. And there was a school right across the street, PS9, who immediately took the appropriate GRP action and swiftly went into a shelter-in, make an immediate notification to the parents. And when that shelter-in was lifted, immediately again communicated to parents about the fact that it was lifted and all the young people were safe in the building. Our position here is to continue to over-communicate with our parents so that they can continue to trust that our principals are doing a great job of keeping young people safe during the times of an emergency. There were some slight missteps that we're looking into, and we'll be able to talk to you more about that at another time.
Can you hear me now? That's better. Okay. I saw some of the reports yesterday, and I saw some of the images of frantic parents who were running up to the school, trying to figure out what's going on. And I want each one of them to know that I feel their pain. Any parent, I'm a father of 4, any parent who hears any word about violence, particularly a gun, anywhere near a school and a school that your child attends, I mean, that's traumatic just to even hear it, even the possibility of it. And we have a system where every principal is supposed to communicate with their parents to help to allay those fears and concerns. We have a couple of different systems that our principals are working with. Across the street from the Brandeis campus is PS9. And give me the principal's name for PS9. Miss Stephanie Saunders, Principal Stephanie Saunders. I want to just shout her out right now publicly, because while the threat was not immediate at her school, they were right across the street. And everything that we have seen, that principal did everything that they were supposed to do. She used the system. She communicated with the parents, even though their school also went into lockdown. That is the way the system is supposed to work. And then parents don't have to be frantic. I don't know that that is the way it was handled on the Brandeis campus, and that's what we are investigating. And if that was not the case, we will deal with that issue accordingly. But I am very sorry and apologize to any parent who had to go through that and was not being communicated with in real time. That is unacceptable to me as the chancellor, and for me personally as a parent. I can only empathize with how they must have been feeling, and some of their response as relates to this notion around cell phones and us talking about cell phone restrictions, cell phone bans, which I have advocated for, and I've strongly said to every school we should be looking at doing that. We have not put an official cell phone ban in place, but I think that there are a wide range of reasons why we think cell phones are deeply distracting in schools. The number one reason and concern around a cell phone ban always has to do with, if you have an emergency, how do parents communicate, or how are parents communicated with? And my position has been, the school is supposed to be in communication with the parents. They should not have to rely on being in touch with individual children who often don't even know what's going on themselves. So if the leadership of any of our schools on that campus did not communicate effectively with parents, that will be dealt with. I cannot tell you that that was fully the case just yet, but I'm looking into that, and I'm upset at even the notion that parents were not communicated with. So just at some point next week, we should be able to get back to everybody on this after we do a deep dive and investigate and see exactly what happened. There are 4 different schools inside of that building, including a Success Academy charter school, and then there are 3 other traditional New York City public schools that are in that building. I'm looking at all these issues right now and treat that very, very seriously. God forbid if there were actually a gun and parents are not being communicated with. So I want parents to know that I feel the pain and the trauma of that, and I'm trying to deal with it.
All right, we'll turn to members of the press. As always, please give your name and your outlet. Thank you.
And let me just also, just for the record, also say PS9 was a shelter-in, so it's not a lockdown. There's a small distinction.
Chancellor Andrew Schiff from WNBC TV. How are you? Your opening comment, what I wanted to know, are you saying or will you say to children who have phones of various ages, who see your picture, Chancellor Banks surrenders phone, you know, Banks brothers surrender phones. These kids are reading it on Facebook and social media. You go to these schools and they ask you about it. So I'm just curious what you say to the kids who are reading these things about their chancellor and the city writ large.
You know, it's an interesting question, Andrew. And it's not something actually that I've even given much thought to. And perhaps I should be. But I would say to all of them, this is a chancellor who has always been there for them, who is authentic, who lives his life with integrity. That's the only way that I know how to be. And I think it is also a lesson it's a lesson in life. There's sometimes where your name may be associated with something. It doesn't mean that it had anything to do with you at all. Sometimes kids will be accused of things, and they are, even in our schools, that they were not a part of and had nothing to do with. So just because your name happens to be in a paper or connected to whatever does not presume some level of guilt, and that it is a lesson in life, that there are going to be times where you will see challenge. But in this chancellor, they will see somebody who holds his head high, who walks with confidence, who leads with integrity. But even when you do that, that doesn't mean that challenges won't come your way. But I intend to demonstrate every single day how I was raised and how I live my life. And I live my life with integrity.
Oh, hi, good morning, everyone. Juliet Papa from 1010 Wins. Hi. Chancellor, since you are talking about the investigation, I was wondering your thoughts on whether you think this investigation colors how you are talking to and doing your job, and over time, how it would affect your job. And also, if you could talk about your relationship with your brothers, Terrence and Phil.
I would say, first of all, I don't think it's going to color my job. Number one, I'm not distracted by this at all. You should know on the first day of school, I visited several schools, 3 different schools on that first day. My schedule has not been impacted at all. I continue to move and do what I have to do, and I will continue to do that. And I think outside of that, you know, and I think the people who know me recognize who I am, and I'll leave it at that, right? But I will say, just like any other family member, I love my brothers. I love my family, as I'm sure you love your brothers and your sisters and your family. And nobody wants to see any family member going through stuff or having your name in the papers for all kinds of issues, right? And so outside of that, I won't say anything more other than, of course, I love my brothers and my entire family.
Chancellor, good morning. It's good to see you. Josh Einiger from Channel 7. From a 30,000-foot view, as a member of this administration, I'm wondering what you tell New Yorkers who see what's going on, and they see all these multiple things happening all at once. What conclusion should they draw about where city government is at this point in time with all these investigations? If you were in their shoes, not involved, looking up at what's happening, what conclusion would you draw?
I wouldn't draw any conclusions. I would do, I think, what the mayor said. None of us have any control over what's happening here. These are a wide range of things that are happening, and you have to let the process play out. That's what the mayor has continued to say. There have been, certainly as relates to me and so many others, have not seen any charges that have been brought against anybody. So if and when the U.S. Attorney is ready to speak to what is happening, that's when they will do it. Those are questions I think that should be raised with that office. I don't know, but I would just tell anybody who's watching, any New Yorker, to just you got to watch and see how this plays out. And I mean, I don't know much more that I would say other than that.
Hi, Chancellor. Jillian Jorgensen. Thank you for taking our questions today. I have one really quick one and then another one. So did they give you your phones back? I'm just curious if you had it on the first day of school. You mentioned you didn't have it with you, that you had left it in the car. I was just curious if they had been returned to you by then?
Right, no, the phones have not been returned to me as of yet.
About whether you ever took any meetings with your brother Terrence as he was pursuing a lobbying career, or whether you encouraged that career at all.
Jillian, that is the exact kind of question that you know I can't respond to. So when I say I'm cooperating with a federal investigation, some of the other questions that have been asked much broader, I can't respond to that.
Thank you, Chancellor Banks. Mariela Salgado for Univision. You talk about family, and I represent the Hispanic community. We are very into family, as you know, as other communities. So I'm wondering what you would tell the children now, the students, being that it's not only you who's being investigated by your siblings. And it has a connotation for them to understand that. Associated with something negative.
Yeah, but I understand, and I understand you appreciate you asking those questions. Quite frankly, I don't know that the kids across New York City are like completely caught up with watching what's happening here and worried about what's happening that I'm saying to my siblings or anything like that. Kids are very focused and engaged with their teachers and with their principal at their school. I don't know that they spend a lot of time, quite frankly, thinking about all of the people who work here. But again, I responded earlier. I live my life with a level of integrity. I always have, and I always will.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Mr. Banks. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm independent media. I want to know what's your take about the CEC 20 situation in South Brooklyn, about the parents complaining about them being defunded, their school district being defunded. And there's a number of these parents that are complaining about how a number of the money is being sent to the migrants while instead of being sent to the school. So how do you respond to that?
This is what, CEC 20? Yes. Melissa, you want to speak to it?
Thank you for your question. We engage regularly with all CECs. Any concerns that CECs have, we meet with them on a regular basis. I'm happy to continue to meet with all of them, specifically with CEC 20. And in terms of our support for migrant students, I will continue to say since the very beginning that these are students in temporary housing. We do not track anyone's status here. And so if there are questions with that CEC, I'm happy to follow up with them. Thank you.
I'll also note that when new students enroll in our schools, those schools get more money.
Hi, Chancellor. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Anita Bolle from the New York Post. I have a couple of questions. First, the investigation, and then the Brandeis High School. Just to begin, you mentioned that your legal counsel assured you that you aren't a target in the investigation. Have the FBI confirmed this? And just following on that, Police Commissioner Edward Caban was also ruled out as a target, but he stepped down from his position. Would you be willing to do the same?
I'm not responding to either one of those questions. Thank you.
Hi, Josie Stratman with the Daily News. I'm wondering if you can talk about the results of the Safer Watch pilot, the mobile panic buttons in city schools, and why the DOE opted to not expand it citywide.
Liz, you want to speak to that at all?
Thanks for the question. I think we'll have to get back to you on that, but the short answer is it wasn't a good fit for our schools. But in terms of any specific questions that have popped up in the news recently, we've been entertaining those questions in writing to our press secretary, and we would ask you to send those to him. We can provide more detail.
I'll reiterate, that was a New York Police Department pilot, not ours.
Hi, Chancellor. How are you? Medina Torre from Politico. I wanted to ask you about a recent report about you and your brother Terrence Banks being treated to luxury suite tickets to this October 2013 Jets football game by Jonah Recknitz, a businessman who went to prison after the feds accused him and Jeremy Reichberg of trying to bribe some NYPD officials. Were you asked by the feds to speak about attending that game during any of the cases involving those businessmen? I understand that there were some photos of you at the game that emerged at this November 2018 corruption trial of a former precinct commander.
Was I asked by the feds about that? Is that what your question was? Yes. Yeah, I'm not answering that. Okay, I saw a picture in the paper today about a football game that I went to 11 years ago. Yeah, it speaks for itself.
Hi, Chancellor. Morgan Mackay with Fox 5. I just wanted to know, what more do you know about your brother's consulting firm? And also, did you call the mayor after after the FBI raided your home? Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know how to make it any clearer. Cooperating with a federal investigation. Those questions that you just asked are specific kinds of questions that I'm not answering, and I can't answer those questions. That's what it means to when I'm saying we are cooperating with a federal investigation. So certainly not answering that. We're going to pivot into a couple of other things at this time. I would like for Dr. Danica Rux to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing. We're really excited about. You know, NYC Reads was something that we launched last year, that we launched in a little less than half of our school districts. I just spoke at the Library of Congress, wasn't last night, night before last. A huge event, several members of Congress who attended with a complete focus around literacy, the science of reading, and the fact that New York City is really in many ways leading in this space for the nation. And that's where I'm spending my time, that's where I'm focused. We have now, this September, as we just launched, every elementary school across the entire city of New York is now on the same page as it relates to the science of reading and teaching all of our kids to read, to put them on the right track to reading. It doesn't mean that you're going to see an uptick in reading scores every single year. It takes time, particularly in a system this large, to do that. But Dr. Rux, just some early input on just where we are together with, and then I'd like to have Deputy Chancellor Simone Hawkins also speak about what it's looking like at our early childhood programs.
Thank you, Chancellor, for that. I am super excited to share updates about New York City Reads. We are at full scale now. That means every school, elementary school, K through 5, children have access to high-quality instructional material. That means our 28,000 teachers in those schools have had high-quality professional learning experiences. That also means that our teachers have access to job-embedded coaching in their schools with their colleagues. They're learning the curriculum, they're unpacking the curriculum, and I am happy to share that on the first day of school, the first couple of days of school, my team and I visited 67 schools across New York City. And on the third day of school, I walked into 3 schools in Community School District 18, and I was floored with what I saw. Because what I saw were teachers in front of classrooms teaching. They knew the curriculum, they knew the routines, the children knew the routines, and they were able to get into teaching and kids learning in those classrooms. That doesn't happen. That is something for us to celebrate. Because what used to happen is teachers would spend the first couple of days learning the curriculum as they are teaching the curriculum to our children. And our children do not deserve that. So that is a quick update as to what I saw. New York City Solves. Happy to share that we have launched, as the Chancellor mentioned, 400 high schools in New York City. Children have access to algebra curriculum. That also means in 9 school districts, community school districts, in our middle schools, 102 schools, have access to high quality curriculum. Now that is something for us to also celebrate, because superintendents on their own, because they saw the value and the benefits of New York City Reads and the coaching and the professional development and the access to high quality curriculum, they organized their principals and they said, hey, we want to do the same thing we're doing with New York City Reads with math in our schools. And so I want to also share with you all that next week we are preparing a roundtable for the media to learn about the illustrative math curriculum. That is going to be an open invitation for you all to come in and see the curriculum in action. Thank you.
Good morning. I think many of you know that I'm still in my early days here at the department in this new role. Oh, sorry, Simone Hawkins, Chancellor for the Division of Early Childhood Education. And just to add to my colleague, very early on, I was informed about the use of creative curriculum and our single assessment system, TSG, and it's been very clear and evident that this play-based whole child curriculum, which also supports whole family and whole community, is incredibly comprehensive and robust. What it does and allows for is teachers to be autonomous in the classroom, to support play, but also organize and structure what the day looks like, centered around child needs and their preferences for how they want to learn. So as I dig in a little deeper and learn a lot more, I plan to definitely meet my colleagues' numbers in her visits to programs, but also very much connect with programs, not just in our district schools and pre-K centers, but also in our CBOs and our family child care homes, where they are also serving our children using this creative curriculum.
We can open up to education-related questions.
Hey, good morning. Mike Gelson-Rooney from Chalkbeat. I have one quick one about the investigation, but I do have one about the curriculum, promise. So everyone else has asked questions about this. He can tell me that, he won't answer it. My question was...
He can ask it.
Hello? Okay. My question first was whether anyone else in the DOE had their phones seized as part of the investigation. Any answer to that?
No. The answer is no.
Is no. Great. Thank you so much. My curriculum question is, there was recently a Queens High School superintendent spoke with the CCHS about some results from the Algebra 1 Regents last year. That was a district that I think had pretty widely piloted illustrative math. They saw their Algebra 1 Regent scores go down. There was a reference, I believe, to similar results in the rest of the city. I know there was a completely new test this year too, but I'm wondering if you could talk about what you've seen in terms of Algebra 1 Regents this year, how much you're attributing that to the new test, how much you're attributing it to the curriculum, or does it kind of change your view of how you're rolling out that pilot in the second year?
It certainly doesn't change our view with respect to how we're rolling out the pilot. You recognize, first of all, that there are always kind of implementation challenges. Anytime you're rolling out something at this level, it's very significant. And we don't measure it by, did you get an immediate uptick in scores, up or down, to be quite frank. We're playing the long game here. And what we do know, and the reason we started this work, is so many of our kids who were failing up until now. It's interesting that people would raise some of these issues with me as though we were all doing really great before, and now you started a new system. So when you roll in a new system, it takes a number of years, actually, before it fully takes hold. We've met with representatives from Tennessee and Mississippi who have done the same work that we have done for several years before us. And so we had already expected this. That's what they told us. It takes 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years. But if you stick with it, that's when you will see it take hold. That's why I think our investment in early childhood is so critically important, because if kids are getting those foundational skills in an age-appropriate way, we think that bodes well for their future. And even for those who are deeply interested in test scores, we think that we're going to get a significant upgrade in test scores, because we got 3-year-olds who are already being fully engaged and learning to read, learning to do math in age-appropriate ways, that by the time they're in the 3rd grade, standing for their real first standardized exams, we think over time, that's when you're going to really see the system shift and transform. So I'm excited about that. Dr. Rux, you want to weigh in anything else? That's fine. Okay.
Education related?
Hi, Chancellor. Thanks for doing this today. Doug Williams with CBS2. You and I spoke last week about the set services deadline. And in your answer to me about that, you said, you described really a pattern of fraud. Parents that I've spoken to seem to think of that as separate. They're calling this a money grab. They're not really sure how enforcing a deadline has anything to do with what's happening with the program that's still going on, as long as you meet the deadline. So what's your response to that, and what does enforcing a deadline have anything to do with fraud?
Appreciate that question, Jess. Thank you. And the person that's really been spearheading that for us has been our legal counsel, Liz Vladeck. Liz, you want to speak to it?
Absolutely. So we understand that the place we are in at this moment is hard for a meaningful number of families, and we really want to provide some relief there. But there is a bigger picture, which is that the number of these cases has exploded in the last 10 years. And unlike what we saw 10 years ago, when cases brought to the DOE claiming that families were entitled to services were really focused on the free, appropriate public education that all children are entitled to, the cases we're talking about are driven by equitable services demands, which means the family's not seeking a public education. They want to enroll their child in private school, pay the tuition. Absolutely, they're right. And they want the DOE to pay for or provide services to their child with learning disabilities. The law requires that families notify a school district by June 1st of the year ahead of the coming school year if they intend to maintain that placement and ask the DOE to continue and or pay for services. That deadline has been in place for a long time. We've communicated it in any number of ways, in any number of fora. And we know that our communications have been relatively effective because we have more than 16,000 families who did submit their June 1st letters. With all of that context, the bigger picture here is that the volume of cases has also revealed to us that in certain cases, we see real problems where the family is not aware that there's a request being made on their behalf, that the quality of the services are really poor. And so enforcement of the June 1st deadline is one of a meaningful number of steps that we are taking to try and ensure we have adequate controls throughout these systems. And to address your question about what's the difference in terms of enforcing a deadline, how does that make a difference? The first thing it does is it facilitates our sort of prioritization and ordering of provision of services and the use of the funds that we spend. It also ensures that we're in compliance with state law. The state has engaged in a number of initiatives in the last couple of years to push us to be more rigorous in our enforcement of the laws and more circumspect. They have actually changed the rules around these cases altogether, starting this school year, citing some fraud concerns. And it allows us to ensure that we are in touch directly with families so that we know that it's a family that's driving the case, that's seeking the services, and ultimately whose child will benefit. And so in terms of families who did not meet the deadline, we want to do everything we can for those families as well. With this background that I've laid out, we are required by law to first serve those families who have filed their letters. What that letter does in the law is it creates an obligation for us to serve those families, a legal obligation. Without that letter, we do not have that obligation. So we are working to get services to those 16,000 families as quickly as we can so that we can next turn to getting services in place for those families who are reaching out and fairly saying, why have things changed here? I completely understand that point of view as a parent. And it's a struggle sometimes to balance such a huge system that involves so many hundreds of millions of dollars with making sure we've got every single family what they need, but that's our commitment.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up because the parents that I'm speaking to are saying they did not know that this year the deadline would be enforced, that they know it's been in place in the back of their heads, but that they've been able to sign their kids up for services in August in years past, and it's been fine. Can you explain to me the communication from the DOE to these parents before the June 1st deadline? How exactly were they supposed to know that this year that was a hard deadline?
So I just have to be the annoying lawyer for a second and say that when you know there's a legal requirement, you should comply with it. To the question of what's a family to do, why has this year become different than all other years, I would say that all of our communication about what's involved in moving forward with continuation of services advertises that that June 1st deadline is part of the process. I will also say that, again, important to have the context that these are not public schools, these are private schools. And so we do rely really heavily on private schools and the organizations that represent them, for example, through our Office of Non-Public Schools Standing Committee, to make sure the word's going out to families, since in most cases it's their school that's the much more reliable, clear channel of communication than DOE necessarily. And we certainly emphasized with that committee this year and those representatives that we were having to take these additional measures.
Education related, Mariela?
Chancellor, again, Mariela Salgado for Univision. This has to do with NYC Reads. You've said that we're going to see the results when the children are a little bit older. We know that the teachers are being trained with a new curriculum. I'm just wondering how kids with special needs or the ones that need more support in reading fit in because, number one, are the teachers getting trained to detect dyslexia, which is very important to reading? And number two, how do the newcomers, the immigrants who not necessarily know the language fit in to make sure they get ahead and not delay the others?
Thank you so much. So that is, your question is exactly why we
Christina,
formed
can
the
you
division.
introduce yourself? Yeah.
Yes, Christina Foti, Deputy Chancellor, Division of Inclusive and Accessible Learning. So the question that you ask is exactly why we formed this division. And this division of inclusive and accessible learning is comprised of the Special Education Office and the Office of Multilingual Learners. And the importance of this, of elevating these two populations is to ensure that every decision that is made centers both our students with disabilities and our multilingual learners. And so the Special Education Office and the Office of Multilingual Learners is working right alongside with Dr. Rux's team to ensure that as we do curriculum rollout, we are not only training teachers in the science of reading, but we are also training them to identify and serve, whether those be disability-related needs or second language-related needs. Our commitment has been to provide access to all learners. And so all of that training that we are doing with both populations in mind and providing targeted supports to both.
Next question.
Hey, so under the new mayoral control law, there's a deadline to name a new chair for the panel for educational policy on September 15th. Someone put forward by the regents and the state legislature. Wondering if you could update us on whether that is in fact going to happen by September 15th. Any sense of, has the mayor talked to the candidates? Is he pleased with who they've put forward?
Deputy Chancellor Ramos, you want to speak?
Absolutely, thank you. We are happy to report that we will have a chair to meet the deadline. The mayor and the chancellor's offices had an interview process with candidates, and a selection has been made, and you will be hearing more about that shortly in alignment with the deadline. Thank you.
You should just know also that in accordance with the law, there was a recommendation that was made by each of the persons that were stated in the new legislation. Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins, Speaker Carl Hastie, and Chancellor Dr. Lester Young. So each one of them, in fact, made a recommendation, and each one of those people were recommended were interviewed, same set of questions that were asked. A decision was made, and you should be hearing about that shortly.
Next question. All righty.
Any updates on whether there would be any changes to admissions related to the class size bill, enrollment caps, enrollment reduction? I know the goal was to communicate that, before admissions process is underway.
Thank you for the question, and since you got one extra question, I'm actually just going to take a moment to say appreciate the shout out for the first day of school that I received. But on behalf of this leadership team and all of our teams sitting over there and beyond, and our principals, thank you for the work. Still always can do better. In response to your question, thank you very much. We are doing an enormous amount of planning with our partners at UFT and CSA, as required by the law, as we look towards implementation for next school year. As many of you know very well, we sent out additional money for this coming school year focused on class size. We asked all of our superintendents around the city to think about how they could make progress on class size with some flexibility and some ideas out there for them. That's all for this upcoming school year. We are working on all the pieces right now with UFT and CSA for next school year. Don't have any announcements on that now, but we are committed to making sure any changes happen in time for the admission cycle.
So finally, as we wrap up here, first of all, thank you all for coming. As you've known, since I've been Chancellor, I do these on a very regular basis. Nobody mandated that I do them. We did this because we think it is important to be open and to be transparent. That is the way this administration here at New York City Public Schools has always carried ourselves. And so we appreciate all of you for covering this work and what we do, asking the critical questions that you have to ask. I really feel like New York City Public Schools is in such a really good place as we've started this year. It's been an amazing start to the year. I feel great for our staff, feel great for the kids of New York City. I really think that there's so many great things, and we're certainly inviting all of you to join us on Tuesday morning, Frank Sinatra for the state of the schools. I'll be giving a big speech, kind of capturing a lot of the wonderful things that have been happening and also projecting into the future where we're trying to go and laying out a big vision for the school system. It'll take place on Tuesday. We start out 10 o'clock. You want to be there before then. It will be packed. We've got over 1,300 people that have already RSVP. We expect folks to wind up in an overflow room. It will be taking place at Frank Sinatra High School, which for anyone who has not been there yet, you're in for a real treat. It is, I mean, Tony Bennett was the driving force in making that building happen. May he rest in peace. But it is an amazing, amazing facility and a great school, one of the real gems of our school system. And we want to help show it off a little bit next week. And after the speech, we're going to do a press avail again. So this system and the event was also going to be live streamed for anybody who can't get there. But again, it's another example of how we try to move here at New York City Public Schools. We don't run from controversy. Whatever the issues are, we're upfront, we're direct. Where we can answer, we do. Where we need to get more information, we come back to you as well. That's what our entire team has been charged with. And I can't even begin to just tell you just how proud I am to be the chancellor of this school system, not only on behalf of all of the parents and the students and the staff who work at our schools, but also just the people who work closely with me every day. This is the A team here. It really is. And they make things happen for the school system. I'm deeply appreciative. So we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.